As for those who died in the fire, screw them, but the wounds still fester.
To fester means to rankle, as in a feeling of resentment towards circumstances or events, which causes the emotions to become more potentially dangerous or even violent. Okay, so in this context, fester refers to some type of feeling of injury or being wounded where the feeling just gets worse. The original meaning of fester is infection. If a wound is not properly cleaned out, then the result will tend to be infection, and then the wound will just get worse. So just as a wound can fester, people's hurt feelings can fester too, especially if the issue that they're upset about is not resolved, or if there's an ongoing negative situation where there doesn't seem to be any positive outcome. Okay. Recently, there have been a number of police shootings that have led to riots, and in most cases, the cause wasn't exactly the police shooting, but it was festering conditions of poverty and feelings of injustice. And then when the police shooting happened, it was like a spark that lighted a pile of paper and caused the riot. In the United States, there were Jim Crow laws which discriminated against black people up until roughly 50 years ago. But in spite of the repeal of the laws, the wounds have still been festering, and there's still a lot of resentment even years later.
The security services claim to have foiled a Russian-led plot to launch a Bessarabia People's Republic. In the run-up to the first anniversary of May 2nd, dozens were detained.
To foil means to thwart someone from doing something, usually something pretty highly negative, but presumably you could also foil somebody from doing something positive as well. The idea of foil seems to come from multiple sources. One possible source is there's a type of sword which has a point, not much of a blade, and that's called a foil. So if somebody were to attack you for some reason and you stuck your foil in them, you could say that you foiled them from hurting you. So that's one possible source. It also seems to have other related sources relating to the idea of trampling, and most of them are pretty hard to understand. In any case, you can think of it as stopping something from happening. And it could be either done in an active sense, where you directly stop them, or it could be done in a passive sense, where you have protection of some type that prevents them from attacking you. So, for example, the police can foil a robbery by arriving on the scene and capturing or shooting the robbers. Likewise, you can have software on your computer that foils viruses from being able to get inside your computer. So in this case, it's more of a passive defense. Or you can have a burglar alarm in your car that foils people from stealing your car. So in this case, someone claims to have foiled a Russian-led plot, which means that they have taken measures to prevent the plot from succeeding. There was a professor who was plagued with students cheating on his tests. It didn't help that he kept giving them the same test over and over again every year. But in this case, he created a brand new test, completely different than anything he'd done before, to foil the cheaters. Very recently, there were two guys that actually dug out of a prison in New York State, and they escaped. And I was actually hoping they'd make it to Canada personally, but the police foiled the escape for both of them. One of them got shot, the other got caught. He was only a mile away from the Canadian border.
Mr. Gordienko half-jokingly calls himself a patriotic pirate and speaks of an alliance with Odessa's powerful criminal underworld against the pro-Russians.
Underworld refers to the type of world that criminal people live in. The idea is that they live in a world that's sort of submerged underneath the normal world that we see every day, where they are involved with other people that are also criminals, and these people, they sort of live their lives based around criminal activity. The original meaning of the underworld comes from the Greek idea of Hades, which was where all dead people go. And then when the Christians came along, they created heaven, which is up in the sky somewhere. And then the underworld was left for just the bad people and not the good people. So an underworld refers to the world of criminals or organized crime. And it's used just as a generic talk about criminals in a gangster organization. So there's a lot of Hollywood movies about undercover cops who have to live in the underworld in order to catch the criminals. And in some cases, they almost go over to the other side and become part of the underworld. And that happens in real life too, from time to time, where the cop turns into the robber. There have also been examples of U.S. political leaders who have used mafia, underworld connections to get certain things done. One example was President Kennedy, who had mafia connections to Cuba. And I don't know exactly what happened there, but the strategy seemed to be that the mafia was well connected in Cuba, and they might be in a position to help overthrow Castro.
That's all for today. Tom Taylor is an ESL tutor. He teaches English in the United States and outside, all over the world, using Skype. He can be reached at his website, which is
ESL-fullsteamahead.com.
Click on this link and check out his website and email with questions. Thank you, Tom, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.